Hi, and welcome to Monograph, Alabama Public Television's spotlight on art and creativity. I'm your host, Jackie Clay. We're at the Coleman Center for the Arts in York, Alabama. This episode features 3 artist segments, but don't forget, all this content is online. So the Coleman Center started as an arts club in like 1984, I think. And so it was local artists that were showing their own work. By the mid-2000s, there was kind of an ideological change within the organization that was facilitated by 2 of my predecessors. And now we have like 5 main programmatic areas. We have our artist residency, which is like our best known program outside of the state. We have exhibitions. We have art education, a community garden, which we'll visit, and Pop Start, which is a space we use now for like our screening series, a lot of like public programs, workshops, classes, things like that. We are located in downtown York. We have 7 buildings with a variety of uses. Our most popular and best known is the one we share with the library, and it also has our gallery. You know, I was an artist in Alabama. You know, organizations like the Coleman Center and also the Birmingham Museum of Art were like pretty critical to my development. I went to high school at Alabama School of Fine Arts. I graduated from there. And after high school and college, I moved back to Birmingham and pretty quickly started working for the Birmingham Museum of Art. I worked in the education department. And while I was there, it became clear, I loved working in museums. I loved like working as like an art worker versus being a maker myself. And so I went to grad school in the Bay Area at California College of the Arts. I had heard of the Coleman Center and visited probably back in like 2006, 2007. I just thought it was a neat organization. You know, like the Coleman Center is really filling a gap. There isn't an excessive amount of opportunity for artists who are working outside the state to kind of be in practice in the state, you know. And when I was coming back, my dad said this really lovely thing. He was like, yeah, maybe you're like the Coleman Center is gonna help the next Jacob Lawrence develop. And I was just like, oh. Also, it's just a beautiful idea that like we are here to kind of cultivate other folks' creative practice. And I do really believe in the importance of, I don't know if visual literacy is exactly the right term, but you know, like people who don't sing well still enjoy music and engage with music. If you're not a formally trained dancer, you still dance and move. But there's something about like how visual arts has been like relegated. And it's like, to be able to buy objects is for the wealthy, and to be able to do it as an expression is for the highly skilled. And I don't want that. You know, I want people to feel a lot of ownership over what they make, and then also like what they see and how they create their environment. And, you know, that excites me. And then I love working with artists. I love working with artists in practice. I think I'm really good with it. I'm pretty patient, you know, things like that. The artist's name is Tierney Malone. He's an artist that's based in Houston. And he would drive from Houston here to work on it. He's someone who's very interested in jazz and interested in like Black roots music, you know, and so he kind of centered it on Vera Hall, who is a vocalist that's from the county. And it's a pretty unusual mural for the middle of pretty rural Alabama, so I thought it was done well. First up, we're gonna visit another mural. It's by artist Paul Cordes Wilm. Wilm uses pop and folk sensibilities in his 2-dimensional work and larger scale work in public space.
I started painting just on my own on found cardboard and found wood and stuff like that because I was inspired by folk artists like Mose T from Montgomery and Reverend Howard Finster from Georgia. And I was privileged enough to visit Mose T in Montgomery in his house, and that's where he painted most of the time. He just had like cans of house paint all over his floor. He told me a lot of his techniques, And one of them was the little dashes. He does little dashes around everything. He showed me that he painted the frame on, and I've done that ever since. I owe Mose T a lot in my style. I always use house paint, and I do a layer, the initial sort of foundation, which sometimes has collage in it and sometimes doesn't. And the collage is usually a bunch of found stuff like the inside of envelopes or ripped up old vintage textbooks and stuff like that. And then I'll, project the image, which sometimes it's the same, sometimes I'll do a whole bunch of different stuff. So it'll be like foundation, image, and then I'll paint the outer color. And my colors are usually pretty bright because I have red-green color blindness. So, and every time it's with house paint. So I'll do the outer color with bright house paint, and then I'll do the dashes. Thank you, Mose T. And the final thing is I'll ink it, which is, I use basically just ordinary like printer ink. I think that's one thing that makes my style kind of pop, like literally pop, is the black lines are very bold and thick. Eventually people started calling my style folk pop. So I just decided to keep using that genre, if that's actually a genre. I had been telling myself I need to update that love design. I wanted to update it with more ethnicities and more colors, and just because I just felt like it didn't really fully represent enough. I decided to use Sesame Street colors based on the Muppets, and that in itself kind of made me realize that I had been taught cultural diversity at a young age, because you don't really think of Bert and Ernie or Cookie Monsters having like a particular race. And they asked me to do the mural at the Birmingham Museum of Art, and I was like, that was my first idea, because I just think it's a positive and powerful message. And if I was gonna do a mural that big, that's the message I would like to spread. It was a big challenge, the idea of making the mural like a paint by number experience. I mean, I definitely hadn't done that before. When it started happening, it was completely surreal. Like, it was like a dream. And it was really cool to step back from it and watch, a lot of the work just happen without me. It was really cool to see people enjoying it, and really the amount of intensity a lot of people put into like painting their small piece. Like, some people just stayed there almost the entire time, and it happened a lot faster than I thought it was going to. Joining in and talking with people and having conversations and getting to meet some people, it was just a very different kind of dream-like experience. It's funny, it is perceived as political art, and it is, but a lot of times I just like to document situations, or, show how I would convey a situation just in a single piece of art, or, because not all of my art is political. Some of it's just sort of like, it's a throwaway image, like I will paint the moon. That doesn't mean that, I have a problem with the moon, or something like that. If I feel strongly enough about something, I will try to make an artistic statement about it. Just really like coming from myself to get it off my chest. So that's kind of where the original idea for this came from. And I just feel like if you are an artist, sometimes it's your duty, to convey a situation or speak out about something, in a way that no one else can, in a way that only art can.
We are here in Sumter County, in York, Alabama, on our campus, the Coleman Center for the Art campus. And we're at our picnic tables that were the culmination of a project with an artist collective, Fallen Fruit. They're based in Los Angeles. They do a lot of fruit and food justice related projects. And these tables are one of the projects and kind of the culmination of multiple visits. The project was multi-stage. You know, it included a kind of cobbler potluck where folks from throughout the community brought different fruit cobblers. It also included a jam making tutorial. It included planting fruit trees and doing kind of foraging for fruit locally. And at those events, they had some oral history and storytelling that then was placed on, inscribed on the picnic tables. Like Fallen Fruit says, every body has a fruit story, and these tables have a fruit story. Now the space is used, it's like a quiet meditative space. It has a nice canopy here, so people enjoy sitting in what is relatively cool and reading the quotes. Up next, we have Erin Mitchell, a fellow Birmingham native that uses collage, photography, painting, many disciplines. I think it's really interesting what Mitchell says about her return to Alabama and about how it shapes her practice.
My name is Erin Mitchell, and I'm a collage or interdisciplinary artist. I have always drawn and been interested in art and being very imaginative. I remember being little and just wanting to make a whole bunch of things because I saw my dad making things around the house. So that got me interested in like playing with different materials and finding things that I could like tear up or like put together and paint on. And my great-grandmother was a big influence to me growing up. She quilted, she painted, she cooked. She made everything, and she was always so excited to like show me things that she was making. As far as just artistically, I look at artists like Kara James Marshall, Micheline Thomas, Jacob Lawrence, and most recently, Chris O'Feely. Their abstractions, how they present the body, their narratives of Black people in general, I think I find a lot of inspiration from all of those artists. I was just doing paint for the longest because it's like the cheapest thing. But I'd always used like some type of fiber. Like in college, I was in fiber materials and I did screen printing and that. And so I really missed that aspect, and I love fabric because there's so many different things you can get from fabric. Like people have different memories and it makes them think of times and places. I like that added element, and collaging and cutting. It also ties into some family element. My grandmother's quilting, just Southern tradition in itself, quilting and what quilting stands for, especially in the Black community. Playing around with fabric and then adding objects like hair pieces, barrettes, gems and jewels. I like to have layers to the work because the ideas that I have are really layered. Overall, just thinking of the work that I did kind of in college and even in high school, it was always based on like my narrative of like how I see the world as a Black woman, and growing up, changing my hair and the, you know, how others perceive me or how I want to be perceived. That's always been filtered through my work. It's just gotten even more in-depth. I use myself because I know myself the most. And I know like my vulnerabilities. I know where I feel less important or where I can channel and bring forth these ideas that are universal. There are multiple perspectives of the same type of story that I go through, everyone goes through, and everyone deserves to be heard. I think my work is even more important than what I thought it was and what I thought it can be. And I appreciate that, you know, my voice is being heard, and a lot of people come to me and say that they're, you know, really impressed and happy to have found my work and things of that nature. So that makes me feel like what I'm doing is valuable and it's not just kind of like this narcissistic type of thing. The most fulfilling thing that I've done in my artistic career was to quit my job and pursue an artistic career more full-time. When I decided this, I was working for the Chicago public school system as an art teacher, and what I thought was going to be, more financially stable and just, stable in general and be something that was art related, it turned out not to be so much. And so I was like, well, if I'm in a situation where this job's not even stable, then why don't I do what I really want to do? At that moment, it was just kind of like, okay, well, here we go. Since I took that leap of faith, all of these things have just kind of presented themselves, and I think it's definitely because I've been working and I've been manifesting these things. This is what I took the leap of faith for. I've built and have a representation with a gallery in New York who's working with me, something that I had no idea would come from it. Wasn't looking for it, but it just came to me. Dr. Davis's commissioned piece, which was amazing. I was ecstatic to have the opportunity to provide an image of her and something that had a lot of meaning. Dr. Davis being from Birmingham herself, and then me coming home to Birmingham, and us both being Black women. It's definitely taking on a new meaning to be making the work that I make in Alabama versus anywhere else. I wasn't expecting good or bad. I didn't know what to really expect. But in the time that I've been here, I've done so much, and I couldn't imagine, I was like, why didn't I come back sooner? Being here is more impactful than me being an artist from Alabama in Chicago or in New York or in LA or wherever I would be. My greatest challenge as an artist is to believe that I can do it and keep working. It's so difficult to keep working when a lot of people will tell you that artists don't get paid. You can look around and be like, maybe I should do something else. But if I did that, then I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be as fulfilled as I am. There's going to be times where you want to give up. There's going to be times when you're tired, but you have to keep working. And even if it's in smallest way of work, just that bit can take you to the next level. Your work is important, your voice is important, and someone out there also understands what you're doing and what you're trying to say. So put it out there. Even if it's not perfect, put it out there.
So I'm here with Catherine Shelton, born in Greene County.
Yes.
Currently living in Sumter County.
Yes.
Longest Coleman Center employee.
Yes.
And the keeper and garden goddess.
Yes.
Here. So how did you start with the garden, here at the Coleman Center?
It started with the former administrators, and kind of like a fluke. They passed by my house one day and they saw the garden, and they was interested because they had a garden project coming up. And so I was invited to the next fundraiser that they had. And it's kind of like history from that point on.
They asked me earlier about things I wanted to see for the future for the Coleman Center. And one of the things I mentioned with the garden is to expand it. But are there other things beyond quantity that you're excited about in the future?
Well, I'm excited about expanding, and maybe not so much expanding is kind of regrouping and kind of bettering the space that we already have. And there are things I would, quite naturally like to see, authentic workspace, that type of thing, but that's something to do in the future down the line. But I just would like to see the community more involved. That's my main thing.
How do you think the visual art stuff that we do here and then the garden and food waste stuff is connected?
Really, gardening is an art within itself, because you're producing something and it's something that someone else can enjoy, and rather than just look at it, they can eat it also. So, I mean, it kind of go hand in hand. It seems like when people are eating something that's good for them and they're healthy and they're happy, they produce anything. Well, it's art in my form, their form, it doesn't matter, but just the quality of life. And food has a lot to do with your health and the quality of life.
Catherine, thanks so much for sharing
your story of the garden and talking about your practice.
Well, I really appreciate you even asking, and I enjoyed the entire thing.
So now for our final segment, we will visit with Byron Sonnier, a Cajun artist from Louisiana working in Birmingham that explores the southern landscape.
I started doing art, really just came from graffiti. Got into skateboarding, punk rock, and all that stuff in my teen years, and started writing graffiti, and that just took over my life. With graffiti, there's a lot of rules in the subculture, but part of it is breaking rules too, and it's just constantly evolving. That part of it has always helped me not get stuck in a rut with like certain things. Like, okay, I see this thing, I want to bend it this way, I want to put my own spin on it. Everything I do has to do with the landscape or stuff I see out back roads. Graffiti led me to find a lot of abandoned places and train yards, and we were constantly traveling back roads to try to find spots to paint. And so you're always like looking out the window, like looking at different things, and somewhere along the way, like churches started catching my eye, and the South is completely full of religion. It's everywhere. So I wanted to show that, but not exploit it. I used to be super into this shape of revival tents. I just love the way they look, and I realized that revival tents look just like these firework tents that we have down in Louisiana. Like, the tent is just like such this cool shape. And I never was drawn to like the cross at all, even though I grew up like in a Catholic family and all that kind of stuff. I never really noticed that symbol too much until I think I ran out of things to look at, and I was like, oh my God, the cross is everywhere. And it's really hard for me to paint anything without it now. I think I use the cross a lot because people relate to that, it being good or bad. And I've never had anyone look at it and go, why are you painting this? Like, it's a universal symbol that I think people embrace for whatever reason, even if they're like not into religion, that somewhere deep inside they like are drawn to that. So I have like this little library of different characters and different shapes and stuff. I'm not the kind of person that just sits down and doodles or draws. I'm more interested in putting objects together and how they fit in more of a design way. When I finally do doodle and create a character, it'll stay exactly the same throughout the entire process. So like every piece is literally the same little person or animal, fire, every little piece like that is the same. I just rearrange them. One of my favorite concepts in art or music is how people create a myth about them. Like, going back to graffiti, that's the same thing. Like, you just create this like persona that is so much bigger than you are. It's like this name, and people, put together all these thoughts about who you are and what it is, and no one knows what you look like, and you just created this thing. And I've always wanted my art to have that feel. I don't know, growing up Cajun, like it's like you craft and like you're a man and you're supposed to like fish and hunt and build and all that stuff. So I do try to approach my art in that way a little bit. Like, okay, I can build this, like I can put this together. We're like MacGyver, like my grandmother, knitted and crocheted and all that stuff. Like, she was always working on something. I definitely got that like productive gene from them. Like, you just always have to be doing something. You just don't just sit around. Yeah, putting work out is that's a complicated situation, because a lot of times, like especially when you work is personal, it's almost just like letting a balloon go. You're just like as a kid, it was like very exciting, like cool, like there it goes, but you're like, wait, like I want that back. Like I shouldn't have let that go. Like what are people gonna think, you know? And whenever I set up a show, like I get really excited about it, and then I like, before I step in, I'm always like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like what is this? Like, you know, like how do I back this up? So yeah, it's scary, but it's also very exciting.